number 71. While you're turning there, on our prayer list, we have Ruby Brad, Omega Bullis. When you see her, please keep her in your prayers. Ernest Burnett, former member here, I think he was a deacon. He is taken with cancer, so please keep the Burnett family in your prayers. Young Suk Chang is having some health struggles. Please keep Mingu, Young Suk, and David and Daniel in your prayers. They are still in search of their green cards. Hopefully by the middle of next year, that'll be settled. But they've got some struggles going on right now that need your prayers. Glad to see Ernest Davis with us tonight. Jenny Flanagan, keep her in your prayers. Tabby Jenkins, she's still in the hospital? Is doing better. They figured out some of the difficulties. She did have pneumonia, got through that, but there were some other extenuating circumstances that deal with her cancer treatment medicine that set her back a little bit, but I think they've got a hold on that. And Genevieve Morla, mother of Evis, she's fallen and broken her hip. So we've been asked to keep her in our prayers. And Naomi Sisk and her sister. There will be men's and ladies devotional separate on November 4th. The men's in the fellowship hall, ladies in the next door at the Underwood home. And we have another Super Saturday coming up on November the 9th with Yanetta leading us in that charge. Any volunteer help would be grateful. And our 23rd annual pig out will be November 23rd. So please keep that in your prayers. This is the Saturday or the weekend where we turn back the clocks. So do that at 2 o'clock on Sunday morning. Be sure to set your clock to wake you up at 2 o'clock so that you can set your clock back at 2 o'clock in the morning. Kim Coulter is not here tonight because she has broken a tooth and something else, has a sinus infection. So Lynn told her to shut up. She thought he said stand up, and so she. No, that's not how it was, but I don't know what happened, but please keep her in your prayers. Did you have something else besides that? Anybody else have anything else? Number 71, 86 in Spanish. Let's sing together. As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs after you. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. I want you more than gold or silver, only you can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. Most of us, I think all of us, are Americans, right? What do Americans love most? Baseball and apple pie. Okay. That's what's on the picture up there. But besides baseball and apple pie, what do we love the most? More baseball, more apple pie? Freedom. We like our freedom. One of the things that we're founded upon is our freedom. What else? You're Americans. You should know what you like. What do you love the most? Family. We like those family gatherings. This is a good time of year for that. We have holidays coming out the ear these days. Thanksgiving coming up and Christmas beyond that and New Year's, all of these. New Year's is not so much a family gathering. It's a rowdy ruckus gathering, I guess. But we like to get together. A lot of times churches do for New Year's singings, spiritual family singings. Family. What else? Like sports? No, Netta doesn't like sports. We like guns. We like politics. Oh, come on. There's too much politics out there in the world for us not to like it. We thrive on politics. We don't like the other guy's politics, but we love our politics, right? Now, I'm not talking about politicians. I don't think there's any politicians that we like. But politics itself, boy, you put something out on Facebook, negative or positive, and you're going to get some feedback on it. We like our politics. We don't like the other guy's politics, but we like ours. Junk food. We like junk food? Just ride down the street on Beaufort Highway, and whether it's Asian junk food, Mexican junk food, American junk food, we like our junk food. And I'm sorry? Good old fried chicken. Well, it is, but we don't call it that. That's soul food. That's home cooking, fried chicken. The gospel bird. Anybody know why it's called the gospel bird? Yeah, well, not so much that the preachers like it. The preachers do like it by force of habit. They have to. It's called the gospel bird because when they used to preach gospel meetings or when the preachers were traveling from one place to another because they didn't have located preachers, that's what his pay was, fried chicken. You got the gospel bird. If you don't like chicken, you better not preach. I knew a preacher. His name was Jim Morris, I believe, years ago, and he had a real deep voice. And the first thing he'd tell you when he got in the pulpit, I don't like chicken. I don't know how he got as big as he was without liking chicken, but he didn't like chicken, according to what he said. We like trucks, yes. Americans, we like trucks. We like horses. I'm American. I can say what I like. I like cowboy hats. There are just tons and tons of answers that we could give to the question, what do Americans like most? But come this weekend and any other weekend, you're going to find tens of thousands of people going to the ball game, to the ballparks to cheer on their favorite team. We love our sports, right? It's not just Americans. You go overseas and they play football with this round thing that's got spots all over it. I don't know what it is, but they call it football, and they pump in by the thousands, tens of thousands. They really like that. They like sports. Maybe they like depending on where you are in the world, hockey. Different sports, but we humans, maybe not just Americans, but we humans flock to our sports, our games. I like watching the games on TV. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I enjoy watching the game, especially if it's one of my favorite teams playing. But if I had the choice of watching it on TV, or if you had the choice of watching it on TV or going to the game, which would you choose? Well, I guess that's an age thing here. It's a lot easier to watch it on TV than it is to go to the stadium and go through it. That's a young person's thing, I suppose. I still would like to go to the game and watch the game, even though you can get a better view on the television. But we like our games, and we really like our games when it's free. And you got to go pay for the 9 innings, right? You got to go pay for the 4 quarters. But if they go into overtime, that's free football. That's free baseball, right? We're getting more for our money, we think, or we deceive ourselves into thinking. Doesn't work that way with church. If we go into overtime at church, what? Well, you start deducting. You get in trouble. You're on my time. That's right. Or I'm on your time. So we can't. It doesn't always flow over there to that time thing. But when we go to the ball games, we like it when they go into overtime. What do you think the players think about the ball players when they go into overtime? Think they like it? That's more playing they have to do. I think they like it. I think there's enough ego involved in everything that if we go into overtime, they like it, and they like the fans. That's what they're out there for. Yeah, if they come from the behind and have tied and they're going into overtime, boy, they're all charged up and probably going to win if they have already come up from behind, especially anyway. Who knows the longest baseball game ever played? Jim's not here tonight. He could tell me, I bet you, just like that. I'm sorry? Close. It was 25 innings and went over 8 hours. And I just read on it. I don't know about it, but the Chicago White Sox and it used to be the Boston Braves, I believe it was, that played. And they played 25 innings, and they broke between the 17th and the 18th inning for a break. And I don't know if that was overnight or what, but total time without the break, it was 8 hours to play that baseball game. Who knows the longest? I only looked up college football game. It was between Arkansas and somebody, I forget who it was. And it was played in, I didn't write it down, I think 2001 or 2003, went 7 quarters, 4 hours and 53 minutes. 4 hours and 53 minutes for 7 quarters. That's about right, because 2 quarters or 4 quarters is about 2 hours of, not according to the 15-minute segments, but according to what you have to play to get it on TV. 2 hours to watch a ball game, and they had to play 4 hours, 5 hours actually, 5 hours and 53, 4 hours and 53 minutes. How do you think the players felt after that? Football, it's not like soccer. The guys who play soccer, they're out there the whole time, and they're out there running the whole time. I've never played soccer, but I've watched them. I don't like the game because I'm not accustomed to it, but I admire them. Those guys have got the stamina to stay with it for, even if it's 2 hours. I guess when they get out, they're out for good, but isn't that right, Ransom? If you play soccer, that if you get taken out, you don't get to go back in. That's as I understand it. 4 hours, 5 hours of football. Watching it would be fun. Playing it, what do you got to have to play 5 hours of football? Brutal, head-banging football. What do you got to have? Say it again. Tenacity. That's a college student speaking for you. You got to come up with these big words. Tenacity. That's right. You got to have tenacity. You got to have, here's a good one, stick-to-itiveness. Stick-to-itiveness. There's 5 of them for you, Ransom. I'm sorry? It's a long word. It's a good Southern word, stick-to-itiveness. It's tenacity spelled backwards. Look it up. It's there. Training, preparation. You gotta have it in order to, and the word that we're looking at tonight is perseverance. In order to persevere a 5 hour football game, you have to have something special about you. You have to have trained for it. You have to have prepared for it. In order to finish the game, in order to finish the race, you have to persevere. For the past few weeks, we've been focusing on spiritual victory, moving ourselves toward spiritual victory, noting several steps. We won't go into a review of them tonight, but noting several steps that we need to take if we are going to win over our adversary, if we're going to have spiritual victory, whatever it is that we're fighting against, whether it's Satan himself or some demon that we have brought into our own lives or into our own homes, if we're going to have victory, there's certain steps that we must walk through or go through in order for that to be accomplished. And tonight we come upon the 10th one that we've been looking at, and it's perseverance. Tenacity. Sticking with it. In our sports contests, it used to be, I guess it's not that way anymore because of our new world view that we have. It used to be there's always a winner and there's always a loser. Now everybody wins, right? Well, not so much in professional and college baseball and basketball, but kids coming up, everybody's got to win. Nobody can lose. Finishing the game is important. But in our culture of winners and losers, what's more important than finishing the game? Huh? Winning. Winning's more important. Finishing the game, enduring the 7 quarters or the 5 hours of play, that's tough. But if you endure 5 hours of brutal football and then you lose, how does it make you feel? Well, that kind of stinks. All that bruising for nothing. In our spiritual battles, we have to win. There's no option for losing. Losing our spiritual battles is not a good thing. Our spiritual battle begins when we come of age, whatever that age might be for you, and Satan has enticed you, has tempted you, has drawn you away from God. The spiritual battle has begun. And if you're going to win that battle, you're going to have to be on God's side. God's going to have to be on your side. He is. He's demonstrated that for us. But we're going to have to be on his side, and we're going to have to stick with it. A lot of people get to baptism, and that's as far as they go, right? You get them baptized and go to church for a few weeks, and then they're gone. You never see them again. They haven't stuck with it. They haven't stuck to it. They didn't have the tenacity, the spiritual tenacity to maintain the win. They won. By the grace of God, they won, but then they allowed the enemy to overcome again. The only losers are those who quit before they get to the finish line. Paul says that if you run, if you stay on, keep running, finish the course. You don't have to be first. That's not the goal. You just have to cross the finish line, right? You have to keep going. Finish the course, finish the race. There is laid up for you a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give to them, to us. So it's not a race in the sense of beating the hare or the tortoise, or what's that guy's name from Jamaica? Got the perfect name. Yeah, Bolt. Bolt. If I got to beat him in a race, I might as well stay home. He can do it backwards. I've seen him do it. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. You would bring that up for me. It says, to the weak, Paul writing to the Corinthian church, he says, to the weak I became as weak that I might win them. I have become all things to all men that I might by all means save some. Now this I do for the gospel's sake, that I may be a partaker of the gospel of the grace of God with you. Verse 24, do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way, Paul advises, counsels, teaches, commands. Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. That's a pretty tough statement right there when we think about it. We'll come back to it. Now, they all do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we, Christians, we run the race for an imperishable crown. Verse 26, therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. What does that mean? I don't run with uncertainty. Because we have an imperishable crown that awaits us, I don't run with uncertainty. What'd you say, Miss Evelyn? With confidence, with assurance. And in the English, that's exactly what it means, with assurance, with confidence. But in the Greek, the idea is more, I don't run ignorantly. I don't run without a vision or without a goal in front of me that I'm running to. Paul, when he was running the race, he knew that there was a goal. He knew that there was a finish line. He knew what was beyond the finish line, the glory that God had prepared for him, that God was going to give to all of those who love him, who obey him, who follow him, who run the race. So he had a vision. I want the crown. I will finish the race so he didn't run ignorantly. Can you imagine the Boston Marathon or the New York Marathon or the Atlanta thing the Peachtree Road Race, and there's thousands of people running, but they don't have a goal? Where are they running? I mean, you see them, they're all running down one track, down one road. It may take several turns, but you don't see them going everywhere, right? And he says, I don't either. I don't run ignorantly. I don't run with uncertainty, without an uncertain goal. And he changed the metaphor a little bit in verse 26. He said, thus I fight, not as one who beats the air. What does that mean? We're talking about boxing is the idea. And if you're shadow boxing, who's going to hit you? Who's going to hurt you? You may hit yourself, I don't know, but I don't beat the air punching at shadows. I don't swing and miss, is the idea. I have a deadly foe. I fight not as one who beats the air. I know my enemy, and I'm going to fight it. I'm going to take him, whatever it is, seriously. This is no game, is the idea that Paul's trying to get across, I believe. He says, verse 27, I discipline my body to bring it into subjection. What does he say? What's that mean? Consider the context. He trains. I think that's important. I think that's part of the context. I discipline my body to bring it into subjection. What do we normally do? What do people who don't discipline their body, what do? They are subject to their lusts and desires. They don't discipline themselves. They chase after those lusts, no matter what. Rules mean nothing to them. But the idea that Paul here is saying, my enemy, I know who he is. It's me. My fleshly lusts, my desires. And so I discipline my body. If you look at the Greek there, I continue to do it. It's not a one-time deal. I continue to do it, and I bring my body, my lusts, my desires into subjection. Because if I don't, it may be, continue the verse, he says, lest when I have preached to others, I myself become disqualified. I continue through the strength God has given me to keep my body into subjection, because if I don't, then I'm going to be the one who needs to be preached to, and no one's going to listen to my preaching. If I'm an adulterer talking to adulterers saying you ought not be an adulterer, no one's going to listen, and I have become disqualified. Paul's using some strong sporting metaphors. That's why I started out like we did, talking about sports. But he's talking to the Corinthians, and there were the Isthmus Games. I can't hardly pronounce that word, but there were some Olympic-style games that took place right there in Corinth, or just outside of Corinth. And I guess those who won those games might go on to the Roman Colosseum or whatever. But they did have Olympics back then. How many people get to go to the Olympics in 2000 whatever, or 2000 BC? How many go? It's a limited number, right? You got a world full of people, but then you have, out of that world full of people, you have these contestants who come, but in order to get to the Olympics, what do you got to do? You got to fight your way up there. And not everyone is going to go to the Olympics. And when you do get to the Olympics, how many win? Well, per event, you got how many winners? One. So you went from billions of people to one. Only a tiny percentage of the athletes will ever make it to the Olympics. Fewer still will win a medal. So what do I got to have? What qualities, keeping the metaphor for a moment, what qualities do I have to have in order to be the one who's going to cross that finish line first in the Olympics, or who's going to beat the other guy up in the boxing match? What qualities do I have to get through all that process to that point? What did you say? One of them is self-discipline. I can't eat fried chicken and be the champion boxer. I can't eat fried chicken as much as I love it and as much as it's home cooking. One of the things my coach told me in football, you can't have fried chicken. I said, what? You can't eat fried chicken before you play the ball game on Friday night because it doesn't work with your system. You don't find, unless he's a sumo wrestler, people eating fried chicken, or a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman, they probably eat fried chicken. Or some semblance thereof. So we got to have discipline, self-discipline. I got to not eat the bad things, do eat the good things. I got to have the self-discipline it takes to get up in the morning and do that running or do that weightlifting or whatever it takes to participate or practice for that particular sport. What else do I have to have? Say it again, Yanetta. Dedication. You said, well, you got to know the rules. There's rules to boxing and rules to running. You can't make a shortcut across the field. You got to know the rules. Paul talks about that. You got to have dedication. You got to have desire, a passion for the sport. If I have no passion for playing football, how good am I going to be? Well, if I weigh 350 pounds and I'm 7 foot tall, I don't guess it matters whether you have a passion or not. You're good at it just by being there. But most of us aren't like that. They got to have ability. Doesn't matter how much passion you have. If you don't have ability, you can't play football or baseball. If you can't hit the ball, even though you passionately want to hit the ball and you train and train and train and you can't hit the ball, you're not even get to set the bench. Even the bench has spots that need to be taken, have to be prepared for. Well, let's change the metaphor then. Spiritually speaking, if I'm going to overcome my enemy, whether it's myself, my own lust, my desires, whether it's the spiritual forces of evil that Paul talks about in Ephesians 6, whether it's alcoholism or pornography, whatever it is that is my demon, my adversary that I have to fight, what are the qualities that I'm going to have to win? Desire. Do I need to desire to win, to overcome? You know, a lot of folks are happy with their demons. I've got a bad temper and you just have to get used to it. Yeah. They don't intend on changing that about themselves. What do we got to have? We've got to have desire, a passion for it. What about ability? Do we have to have the ability? Is that a good crossover metaphor from a sporting event or an athlete to Christianity? Do you have to have ability to be a Christian? Well, come on now, don't be afraid. It's not a trick question. Maybe we need to think about it a bit, but it's not too hard. We have the ability. Isn't that what God told? Who's that guy who murdered his brother? Cain. He said, sin crouches at the door But you should, given the implication, you have the ability to rule over it. Yeah, we have ability to overcome. And where we lack strength, what? We can depend on God. God said, in the same context that we're not going to get to because the clock's going to get us, but God said that any temptation, temptations are common to us all, and you've not experienced anything that anybody else hasn't experienced yourself. But in every temptation, God has done what? He's provided a way for you to win. The word is escape in the text. So yeah, we have to have ability. We have to have desire. Do we have to have self-control? That's in the context here. Paul says, Apostle Paul. I mean, one of our mentors, or the greatest gospel preacher to ever have lived. He says, I have to work at it. I have to discipline myself. He says there in verse 24, so run that you may obtain it. What does that mean? You're running the 40-yard dash. 24 up there. Yeah. Do you not know that those who run will run the race all run, but no one run in such a way that you may obtain it. That's the idea, or that's what he says. So run, or run in such a way that you may obtain it. What does that mean? You're running the 40-yard dash. The gun goes off. Bang! What do you want to do? Oh, did that go off? As soon as the gun goes off, what? Lickety split, you're going as fast as you can. If you go skipping down the lane, what's going to happen? You're going to lose. So run, or run in such a way that you will obtain it. Now, you make that to the spiritual application. We're in a race. Paul talks about it, Christian race. I've finished it. We're in a fight for our lives, our spiritual lives. How should you fight? If you're challenged to meet the bully of the school and he corners you, you're going to what? Yeah, you're going to fight to win. We have to fight as if our souls depend on it. That's the crossover metaphor here. Paul's not encouraging fighting. He's encouraging you to fight the spiritual warfare in such a way as to obtain it, as to win it. He says there at the end of verse 27, I have disciplined my body and bring it to subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself become disqualified. Does anybody have a different translation than disqualified? That's New King James. Castaway. Now, when you think of castaway, what do you think? Wilson. That's what you think, isn't it? Wilson. But besides Wilson, what do you think? Castaway. Okay? You said Gilligan, didn't you? Yeah. Depends on the year, I guess. But yeah. What'd you say? Rejected. Unapproved. If I don't keep myself in subjection, my body in subjection, then I will become unapproved. By whom? I guess contextually you could say by those to whom you preach. They're not going to hear what you say, but I think more importantly, and it's also in the context, by God. Go to the next chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're in chapter 9. Let's just act like there was no chapter division and keep going. He says in verse 1, moreover, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware. Did that bell just ring? I do not want you to be unaware that all of our fathers were under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses, the cloud, the sea, and in the sea, and ate the same spirit, all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank that spiritual rock that followed them. That rock was Christ. But with most of them, God was not well pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. What's Paul talking about? What's Paul going back to and trying to bring to their mind? Yeah, the Exodus, the wilderness wanderings. We all know about this. Even, the Corinthian church was made up of Jews and Gentiles. But likely those Gentile Christians had been already taught to some degree about the Exodus, about God and how he brought them from Egypt and saved them. When the Israelites were there in the wilderness, what did God do for them? Let's do it brief because we haven't got any time. Start while they're still in Egypt until they got out of Egypt, until the promised land. What did God do for them? Everything, right? I mean, they had to walk across the Red Sea or across the dry land at the bottom of the Red Sea, but who divided the sea? It was God. They had to actually chew the quail, but who gave them the quail? They had to actually go out and pick up the manna on a daily basis, but who gave it to them? Their salvation, their getting through the wilderness was dependent upon what? Upon whom? Upon God. And Paul wants to bring this out to us, out to those people then and to us. What does, now you have to think about this for a moment, you shouldn't have to think too hard. What does God do for you to get you through the wilderness? What are some of the blessings that God has given you to get you through the wilderness? We're in the wilderness. We're on our way to the promised land. What is God doing for you? What has God done for you? Did he split the Red Sea for you? Nobody told you about the time that he did. He gave his son to save us from our sins, to provide us salvation from our sin. But outside the gospel story, has God done anything for you personally in your life? Can you say, God did this, and because of that, I'm a Christian. I continue to run the race. God gave me a godly wife. My victory in part is because of her. God gave me godly parents. My victory in part, yes, it's because of God, but God gave me a family to be raised up in. What has God done for you to give you victory? I hope you can count your many blessings, name them one by one, and not be able to come to an end. Yes, sir.
One thing is, he said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Sometimes it doesn't say that, but it is reinforcement that
It's what? That's right. I think that's right. And you think about, he says, my burden is light compared to sin. What is the burden of Christ? We have a burden. I mean, Paul talks about that, having to bear that burden. In this very context, he does. But compared to the burden of sin, what's the difference? I mean, yeah, it's light because if I maintain that burden of sin, it's going to kill me. It's already killed me. I want to look at one thing real quick. Oh, the bell's ringing. Click the next slide. Well, you've already done it. Go back one. Go back one more. Now you've already seen it. Now it's too late. What's the key word? Yeah, y'all cheated. Y'all look at the next slide. All are todos, right? Over and over again. Todos, 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 or all. All did this, all did that, all did this, all ate that. Look at the next slide. Where's the key word? Actually, it began in verse 5, but I didn't put it on the right slide. What did all change to? Some, or most, or some. It's no longer all. What does it say? And now these things became our examples to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted, and do not become idolaters as some of them. He was talking about all of them were blessed by God. But some of them became idolaters. Some of them tempted Christ. Some of them committed sexual immorality. Some of them complained and were destroyed. All of them were blessed, but some of them didn't make it because they didn't use the blessings. Perseverance. I'm not going to be able to finish because the time's already up. Perseverance. It's not just being in the race. It's finishing the race. Paul says in the King James, their carcasses now lay in the wilderness. Their bodies. Because they didn't persevere. How many went into the wilderness? Estimations are 2-3 million. On the high end, low end is lower than that. How many went into Canaan of that number? 2. Actually, more than 2. 2 that were of age at that time. Anyone that was a minor at that time probably had the ability to go in as well. Of the adults who came out of Canaan, only 2 persevered, and you know them by name. 4,000 years later, you know them by name. They finished the race. They kept the faith. They persevered. And by the grace and power of God, they defeated their enemies. Folks, there's nothing you can't do. Nothing. But you must stay in the fight. You can't quit. You can't give up. You must stay in the fight. Thank you for your attention tonight.